Okay, everyone, we are in chapter 5 of Echo. On Monday morning, Mike was startled from a nightmare about lice and fevers and fleas. He bolted upright in his cot, his heart pounding. Before he could lie back down, he heard Frankie's whistle. It could only mean one thing. As Mike scrambled from his cot, he heard Mouse's warning again. You got to keep Frankie out of the state home. You got to have a plan. If the kid was called up, how would Mike convince him he had to go? By the time Mike reached the stairwell and opened the window, Frankie was already waiting on the tree limb to be let in. Mike helped him inside, put his hands on Frankie's shoulders, and said, "Whatever happens, I'll figure out something. I promise, okay?" Frankie shrugged. "Okay, look." He reached into his waistband and pulled out a folded newspaper page. He dropped cross-legged onto the floor, opened it up, and smoothed the paper out flat. The headline ran across both pages, Hoxie's Harmonica Wizards. "It's the biggest harmonica band you've ever seen. 60 boys. Mrs. Delancey read the article to us and let us listen on the radio last night. When she put the paper in the bin, I snuck back and took this page before anyone else could. Mike, there's nothing like 'em anywhere. You'd swear by the sound it was every kind of instrument and not just harmonicas." Mike sank to the floor and leaned against the wall, blowing out a long breath. He nodded toward the newspaper. "Frankie, that is the emergency? Remember, we talked about using the signal only when it was very, very important." "Mike, look at them," said Frankie, tapping a photo that took up half a page. Before he died, John Philip Sousa wrote him a special song called the Harmonica Wizard March, and once he even directed the band in a concert. They've played in parades and for 3 presidents. Frankie held up his fingers and ticked them off. Coolidge, Hoover, and our very own Happy Days Are Here Again, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. They even played for a queen, and that's no lie. Now people call them the Harmonica Wizards, and take a breath, Frankie. You sound just like a radio announcer. Frankie looked down and chewed on his lip. "See, I can buy the official band harmonica if I have 65 cents, but I only saved up 23. Mike couldn't help but smile. "Frankie, last month you listened to a radio commercial for Wheaties and wanted the Lou Gehrig baseball card from the back of the box. Before that, it was a Buck Rogers planetary map." "Except I couldn't get those," said Frankie, "because you needed to buy something else first. To get that baseball card, you had to buy a box of Wheaties. And for the planetary map, you needed a label from a can of cocoa malt. But for the harmonica, you don't need to get something else first. You can just order it. See?" "Frankie, what's so important about this that you had to whistle for me?" Frankie barely took a breath. "At the end of summer, there's going to be a big contest with prizes. The top winners get a spot in the band. And if a boy gets into the band, he's on Easy Street. The director, Hoxie, he pays for everything. Uniforms, new harmonicas, music lessons, you name it. They even have their own touring bus. And every summer, there's something called Camp Harmonica, all expenses paid." He pointed to the paper. "Ain't that swell? I bet we could get into the band." Mike read the caption under the photograph. "Philadelphia Harmonica Band led by Albert N. Hoxie for boys ages 10 to 14. "Frankie, you're only 7. Frankie pointed to a boy in the photo in the front row. "He looks younger than me." Mike leaned closer. Frankie was right. The boy looked to be about 5. It lists him as a mascot performer. He's probably someone's little brother that plays decent and looks fine in a uniform. "You could try out. If you got in, maybe they'd let me be a mascot." Mike shook his head. "You think Pennyweather is going to let me audition for a band? And how do you plan to get anything delivered without her finding out? Plus, even if we got a harmonica, she isn't going to let us keep it. She took away our others first thing." "I already got that figured," said Frankie. "Lowers do mail duty every day. We go in 2s to the letterbox at the end of the lane and then deliver the mail to her office. Someone will grab it for me and I'll hide it. You and me can take turns practicing when we're working in the fields, where Pennyweather can't hear." Frankie tapped the paper. It says here, Hoxie even finds homes for kids who don't have families. If they're good enough for the band. See, we could run away and try out in August before September gets here. He stared at the paper, frowning. Mike felt a lump in his throat. He should have known Frankie would find out about Pennyweather's deadline. At Bishop's, news was like water passed in a bucket brigade. So you heard about her getting rid of the lowers to make room for Hathaway boys and me being put out to hire? Frankie looked up at Mike, his eyes solemn, and nodded. Mike put an arm around him. This band, that's good thinking, Frankie. He leaned over the paper and read the mail-in form next to the photograph. Hohner Harmonica, the official instrument of the Harmonica Wizards. You too can learn to be a musician. Instruction booklet included. He looked at Frankie. I've only got about 30 cents. We'll have to wait till we save up. Frankie handed the paper to Mike. Can you keep this and my money for me? Eddie, 2 beds down, likes to steal. He pulled a handful of pennies and nickels from his pocket. Sure, I'll take good care of them. Mike helped him up. When Frankie had one leg over the sill, he turned to Mike. It was very, very important. Mike nodded. I know, kid. See you later. He watched Frankie climb out the window and waited until he heard the whistle that meant he was safely down. Mike went back to his room and sat on the edge of his cot, studying the fine print on the order form for the harmonica. Allow 4 to 6 weeks for delivery. He covered his face with his hands, rubbing his forehead. By the time he and Frankie saved up the money, mailed away for the harmonica, and waited for it to arrive, it would be too late. Frankie would be in the state home. Mike pulled a slim metal box from a slit in the seam of his mattress. He had found it one day, left by some boy who'd slept in the cot before him. Luckily, it had escaped all of Pennyweather's surprise inspections, where she confiscated anything the boys tried to keep safe. He slipped the newspaper and the coins inside, buried it again, and sighed. Why couldn't he and Frankie catch a break? Mike's eyes drifted to Mouse's empty cot. Mouse was surely in New York City by now. Maybe Mike and Frankie should run away too. They could find McAllister at the train station and meet up with Mouse. If Mike was smart about it, he could get them far enough away from Bishop's before Pennyweather reported them. But how and when? Okay, here's what I want you to think about. If you were Mike, okay, what do you think you would do right now? Would you try to go with Frankie's plan? Frankie has a good idea, doesn't he? And he's got it kind of planned out a little bit, but Mike sees some problems with it. Mike is thinking about running away, but he doesn't know what to do. So if you were Mike, I want you to tell me what you think you would do and explain your answer a little bit. Don't just give me 1 or 2 words. I want you to tell me what you think you would do and explain why. Okay?